Scott just made the
back
point.
to Thomas Jefferson, you'll
used to be a lot more secure, not just.
We'll talk about your cosmic coincidences. On July 14th, an American space probe took these images of a distant planet. They're pretty blurry. They're really kind of hard to see. That planet is called Mars. And the pictures you're looking at were returned to Earth from the Mariner 4 spacecraft, the first probe to take a close-up picture of a distant planet when it performed its Mars flyby on July 14th, 1965. 50 years to the day later, this image of a distant planet came back from the farthest edge of the solar system. Now, 50 years to the day later, this image of a distant planet came back from the farthest edge of the solar system. The New Horizons spacecraft, the fastest object ever made by man, has completed the work started precisely 1/2 century earlier and on the exact day, as it flew past Pluto, now reclassified, of course, as a dwarf planet, but at the time of the probe's launch, it was still a member of what was then 9 planets. My friends, it's the end of an era in planetary space exploration. That's not to say that there will not be more space probes to comets and asteroids and all the planets and their moons, but it does mean that none of us will ever again see first images of another planet. That window was only 50 years long, and I and many of you lived right in the middle of it. So let's bring in Scott Ott and Steve Green to reflect a little on this historic achievement. Gentlemen, the data is still coming in from this Pluto encounter, and hopefully the images will get a little better as they're processed. But I want to put that aside for a moment and talk about some of the human stories here. Now, Steve, we've sent mariners to Mars and Mercury. We've sent pioneers to Jupiter and Saturn, and of course the astonishing Voyager probes that went to all the gas giant planets and all the rest of them. But this does kind of complete the inventory, doesn't it? I find it both very noble and kind of sad.
Oh, I don't get the sad at all. You know, I think I was 10 years old when Voyager 1 did the Jupiter flyby, and we got our first close-up image of the big red spot and the moons. And my parents had subscribed me to, I think it was National Geographic Kids magazine. So I was getting the just issue after issue with all of these great shots from Voyager, and also from the Viking landers that went to Mars around that same time, and I was just filled with wonder and awe. And here we are again. This is what's amazing to me. I was 10 years old the first time I was filled with this awe, and now I'm 46 years old, and I'm filled with that same wonder, that same awe. And you say we've completed the inventory. Oh no, far from it. This little solar system of ours is just the tiniest speck on this one spiral arm of this huge. Oh God, look at that picture. Look at that. It used to just be a blue smear, and now look at that thing. I'm amazed. We've barely begun. What was the Pixar movie that I love so much? Up. Adventure is out there. Still is, Bill. We just got to keep reaching for it.
Well, Scott, the planet Pluto, formerly planet Pluto, now dwarf planet Pluto, but Pluto was discovered by a young astronomer named Clyde Tombaugh. Here he is with his homemade telescope. Now, he was in his mid-20s, searching for an unknown distant object that was perturbing ever so slightly the orbit of Neptune. Now, to give you some idea of the magnitude of the discovery, here are the actual plates that he shot, showing Pluto alone moving through the field of fixed stars. You can see where the little pointer is there. Wow. Everything else remained stationary. That one little dot moved, and the way Clyde did it was he flashed these images back and forth, and the only thing that was moving was blinking. It's called a blink comparison. Now, Clyde Tombaugh wanted to go to college, Scott, but a hailstorm in Kansas ruined the family's crops, and that, for the time being, was the end of that. He built his own telescopes at home, and his drawings of Jupiter and Mars got him a job at the Lowell Observatory, where he used a tiny little 9-inch astrograph to take the pictures that you saw just a moment ago. Clyde Tombaugh is a member of perhaps the most exclusive club in the world, Scotty. He joins William Herschel and Johann Galle as only 3 humans in history to discover an actual planet. And some of Clyde Tombaugh's ashes were aboard that vehicle that today flew past that little pinpoint of light on a photographic plate. What do you think about that, Scott Ott?
Well, first of all, thank God the guy never went to college, because if he had gone to college, they would have told him the way the world was and that there was no need to be, you know, looking for stuff like that, because
the science is settled.
The guy's much smarter than him already figured it out. That's right. The science is settled. The other thing that's amazing is this morning I actually set a reminder for myself so that I could make sure that I was looking at the live video feed from NASA when the flyby happened as we record this today. And it was earlier this morning. And so at 6:45, I'm looking at my screen, and as I tuned in, the spacecraft was 8,000 miles away from Pluto. 4 minutes later, it passed the planet. It's like, how do I get a vehicle that does that? I want to go 8,000 miles in 4 minutes. Just phenomenal. And it was great to watch the scene because they didn't have any actual video. The data will come in later and they'll be able to send pictures. All they had was sort of, I don't even think it was real telemetry. I think it was projections that were showing on the screen about where it was and what its progress was going to be. So they got this room full of engineers and people like that. And at the moment that they did the countdown, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, and they were playing the song, The Final Countdown, in the background. And everybody cheered and they waved American flags for roughly 7 to 10 seconds. And then they're just a bunch of engineers and they're like, okay, we got to go back to our computers. Like they allowed themselves, after 9 years, they allowed themselves that moment of celebration. I think it's wonderful that we have people in this country who are not restrained by their station in life or the place of their birth or even the means that they have to access the kind of technology to fulfill their dreams. If you don't have it, build it and look to the sky.
And this was done by Johns Hopkins University, physics lab over there, and young people there too undoubtedly worked their way into that as well. It's the fastest object ever made, Scott. It took the Apollo astronauts, fastest humans ever to travel, 3.5 days to get to the moon. It took New Horizons 9 hours. So it's booking. Well, yes, my friends, it's true that Pluto was demoted from a planet to a dwarf planet. It's also true that we've since discovered many other dwarf planets like Pluto out there. They're called Kuiper Belt objects. None of that matters, because for all of human history, planets were just specks in the night sky that moved slowly back against the background of fixed stars. In fact, the word planet comes from the root word for wanderer. Then for a few hundred years, the telescope showed us blurry and then less blurry images of these local worlds. But 50 years ago exactly, the great age of planetary discovery began, and we're a very privileged group of people because before us, humans had no idea what these worlds really look like. After us, everyone will know from birth what these worlds really look like. We few born in this magic half-century are the only ones in human history before and after lucky enough to have it revealed. It's incredible. Here's a final incredible thought for you. Pluto, with its moon Charon, is one of 2 double planets in our solar system. In other words, all of the other worlds are enormously greater than their relatively tiny moons, but Pluto and Charon are a genuinely double planet. There's another double planet in our solar system. It's 4.6 billion miles sunward of Pluto. 4.6 billion miles from Pluto lies the double planet of the Earth and the Moon. People from Earth walked on their companion world almost 50 years ago, and today we sent what remains of one of us to the world that he discovered. 4.6 billion miles is a long way. The solar system, coincidentally, is 4.6 billion years old. In other words, if every single year that we've been around, that the planet's been around, if every single year it had traveled 1 mile, it would have taken the age of the solar system to get from here to there. So well done, Mr. Tombaugh. Well done, Johns Hopkins. Well done, NASA. For PJTV, I'm Bill Whittle.